Hey, good afternoon. This is Jim Crumbly. I'm an integrator in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I've been involved with PASS since the very beginning and also co-chair the technical committee along with Scott Lord. I want to welcome you to today's third and final session of our PASS Midwinter series, the creating a culture of safety in our schools. We've got a great panel here. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a quick moment. But I want to give you a little outline of what we're going to be doing today. You know, the challenge with school security is that pervasive belief that technology solutions create a safe environment. School administrators, they face parental, board, and community pressure to do that proverbial something. And that something is overwhelmingly a technology solution. Now, let's be clear. Technology is an important and vital part of an overall security plan. Despite what some marketing efforts claim, technology, though, can only supplement and enhance the safety culture. It's not the culture itself. In other words, it's a tool and not the whole toolbox. Now, with the dawn of AI, we risk becoming even more reliant on technology to the point that we forget that people use the technology and respond to risk. That's about the culture. And without that culture, without the people investing in what you're trying to accomplish at your district or your school, the administrators or and the solutions that you implement are ineffective at best and really can become a waste of limited resources. Districts should always remember that it's the people, processes, and purpose that create a culture of safety. And that's today's session, creating a culture of safety in your school. Our panelists today, I'm moderating, and I'll let the guys introduce themselves. Patrick, we'll start with you.
My name is Patrick Reed. I started my service career 2 decades ago, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Chief Lockhart.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Tony Lockhart, Chief of Police, Director of Safety and Security for Gwinnett County School Police. We have 142 schools and over 180,000 students. Excited to be here and collaborate with everyone.
And Dr. Fulton.
I'm Monica Fulton. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of HR and All School Operations in Rolla, Missouri, which includes in charge of safety and security for about 4,000 students, about 700 staff in rural Missouri.
Awesome, awesome. And Patrick's going to bring a very unique perspective to what we're doing today. He is in the private school environment. He was an SRO at a large school district in the Atlanta, Georgia area for a number of years, and now he oversees security and safety for the Greater Atlanta Christian School here in the Atlanta area. So why don't we just go ahead and get started right away with our very first question? And we'll start with a speed round featuring each of you. So, in about four sentences or so, can you describe to the audience what you think and what you mean by a culture of safety? Why don't we just start with Chief Lockhart right away?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Culture of safety, it's a great question. For Gwinnett County Public Schools, culture of safety, it incorporates all individuals to include faculty, staff, students, parents, community members, and the overreaching goal for a culture of safety is to create an environment that emulates safe, secure, and successful schools. And we think that's the best environment for our students to be successful, and also for faculty and staff to feel safe that they're able to teach our students.
That is awesome. And Chief, you've got 180,000 students. You've got a ton. How many staff people do you have?
We have over 20,000 staff.
Okay, so I think as we move through here, we'll talk a little bit about how you've been able to build a culture with that many staff. It's got to be a huge challenge for you. Dr. Fulton, what do you think when you hear that term, culture of safety? What do you mean by that?
I want each of our students to be able to come to school every day to feel safe so they can learn at their maximum potential. They have enough outside influences that when they come here, we want them to have the trusted adults and in our buildings, as well as an environment that can help them maximize their learning. I also understand that a culture of safety goes for our staff. If they don't feel safe and secure here as well, then it's a problem. I learned a long time ago that I was absent one time, and one staff member just was like, well, who's in charge? Who's going to be here in case something happens? So the leader is also that sense of security. So I worked with all of my administrators and my safety teams to work on that aspect as well.
All right, great, great. Patrick, why don't you wrap that up? What you, and especially if there's any changes or differences between what you experienced in the public sector and what you experienced in the private sector.
Well, just adding to what Tony and Monica said, I think culture of care is making sure you're going that extra mile to where, yes, you want to make sure your students are in a safe environment and your faculties feel safe and welcoming, but you also want to extend it for us where we're reaching out into the community so the community feels a part of our school system, our school, so we can have that school system engagement as well as with the community. And so everybody that's around us, we're all engaged. We're all
Right.
wanting the best for the children. We're all wanting the staff members, and most importantly, we want our parents to come on campus and feel connected because with those connections, that only makes us stronger, and it helps us grow to be the best version of ourselves.
All right. No, that's awesome. Now, there's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. When you are looking at having staff members in multiple sites, multiple schools, parents, community, etc., for you, what does it takes a village? How does that impact your ability to create a safe culture? Dr. Fulton, do you have any perspective on this, any specifics, maybe any examples about buy-in?
So in our district, we are very blessed to have a college in town. So we have that those police officers. We also have we have a highway patrol center here. We have our Rolla Police Department, and we have our Sheriff's Department. All of those come together, but we have a community that is above no other. And I know everybody's going to think that. Well, a year ago, March 14th, we were hit with a tornado. And so it was after hours. We had school events going on. My superintendent was at the play of Chicago. And the first picture that you saw was our middle school, that one. Where we put all of the people in the internal rooms is where the tornado hit. The next picture that you see is Mark Twain, and the other one is Wyman. Those are all things that are near and dear to us. But I watched a community come together to actually come in and support our students. We missed 4 days of school along with a week of spring break and was able to start school again for 4,000 students. The tornado, while there were no loss of life directly with the tornado, there was one because of that in our town, but our town excelled, and they help us when it comes down to creating that culture of safety and being there for all of our students and for everyone.
Excellent. Excellent. And Chief Lockard, we've had a couple of conversations about all of this, and we've known each other for a long time. So I know some of your stories, and we've talked before about the fact that when people mention school safety and school security, they almost always gravitate to that active threat scenario. And thankfully, those don't happen. They happen way more than anyone would want to, and more than we should accept. But yet there are other risks, which Dr. Fulton kind of described. Can you talk about some of the examples outside of that active threat scenario that you've had to implement with a district as large as Gwinnett?
Yeah, great question, Jim. And Dr. Fulton, kudos to you guys. What an amazing rebound from an event like that.
Yeah.
We do quite frequently with our community, with our faculty, staff, with our parents. Whenever we talk about school safety, we immediately go to the active shooter and the person with the gun, and what kind of layers and processes do we have in place to help prevent that. And I'll give you a great example. So last year, and it's made the news just as of recently. So last year, September 4th, the Appalachia High School shooting occurred in Barrow County. Barrow County is our neighbor. It butts up to Gwinnett County. It's the county immediately to the east of us. A lot of faculty and staff have children that go to Appalachia High School, and also on the Appalachia High School campus, it connects, there's a middle school and a high school there. So severely impacted us. However, 3 weeks after that, Hurricane Helene was coming through this region. So we had to be prepared for a natural disaster to come. And then a week right after that, the county to the south of us, there's a chemical plant down there, and they had a large chemical fire, which impacted us and shut down the region and stuff. And it impacted our schools at the south end of the county. But then we got to be prepared for the schools on the north end of the county. It was perfectly clear out. There was no haze. So again, to your point, we got to think more holistic. It's not just the active shooter. It's natural disasters, man-made disasters, a gas line breaks, tornado, hurricane, and violent acts.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you've got a lot of things. When you have 180,000 students, things are going to happen. That's a small city. And so as busy a 911 call center might be in a city with 100, like Rome, Georgia, 150,000 people, it's going to be busy. So you've had to deal with everything from drug overdoses to, Narcan, bleed kits, AEDs. These are just things that you and really everyone in our audience has to be aware of and be prepared for. How do you do that? How do you get ready for things like that?
Yeah, a lot of it is training. You got to make sure that, again, that whole village mindset is trained up, that faculty and staff are trained. You're doing your mandated drills, even going beyond the state mandated drills, incorporating additional drills and so forth. Because again, state mandate that can sometimes set the bar pretty low.
Yeah.
We'd like to go above the bar and raise the bar even higher. So yes, your AEDs, your stop the bleed kits, your Narcan. It's all those preventative measures to hopefully help prevent an incident from happening. We've had to deploy Narcan on numerous incidents, stop the bleed kits. We've used those on numerous incidents and so forth.
That's amazing, really. And Patrick, during that time frame, because I remember getting all the phone calls when that mist was blowing through from the chemical fire. It was scary because we really didn't know what we were breathing. People had to go in, students had to go inside, staff members. I had technicians out in the Atlanta area. They're calling me, is it dangerous? What's going on? From a private school perspective, how did you deal with that emergency?
So from the private schools perspective, even though we're private, we're still very much connected to the community, specifically Gwinnett County school system, because we're in Gwinnett County. And so the same process that Gwinnett County is going through, we mirror those as best we can. We can't respond to this on the large scale that they can, but first and foremost, we want to make sure we respond with care to our community, where you can have those different emergencies coming up. But the most important thing is like, how do we listen? How can we help? And how can we partner with those that are around us? It's how we approach that. There are some things that we can take care of and lift that load, but there's other times we need to reach out and ask for help. And that goes back and forth. Even what Tony was saying when we had when he was speaking about the school shooting, we took in some of those students from that school, but it's also just smaller incidences where you have the smoke situation, or you have mental health issues going on, you have emotional things going on. The first thing we always try to lead with, like, how can I help and how can I give you care? And sometimes that's a very small, sometimes to sit down and have a conversation. And sometimes it's activating our network where we might need some counselors. Maybe we need to bring in some mental health professionals. Maybe we need to reach out to our law enforcement partners. We keep one on campus all the time. That's also my background. But we're leading with how can I care for you? How can I help you? And how can I be supportive of you?
An overarching theme as we're talking here, it really goes back to it takes a village. It takes a community to keep a school safe and to respond to an emergency, to respond to an event. And so I would think that memorandum of understandings between school districts, the county district, and the city districts that might be within that county, the neighboring counties, like Chief Lockard mentioned, the private to the public sector, like Patrick is talking about, and what Dr. Fulton's saying about all of that community coming together and creating an environment where our kids can prosper, that they can grow and they can improve. It's really, really important. So, Patrick, we'll start with you on this question. In creating a culture, who should be the lead at a school? Who should promote it and be the lead in creating that culture? Where does it begin?
The person that's passionate about it. And luckily in the school systems, you have a lot of people that's already in place that care for children. But then you also have those that come from a law enforcement background or a protective background where they're in the school system. And they have a different approach to it. So leaning is a natural passion that someone already has, and you just want to stoke that flame and encourage that to where that person's looking at all our strengths and our weaknesses,
Mhm.
but they have the knowledge and the know-how to say, let's take this weakness and make it into a strength. And so it's not just someone you just want to place in that position to where, hey, you're going to take care of the safety aspects of things. You want someone with a passion for the community, a passion for children, a passion for education, and also has a knowledge-based background of like how can I actually make a difference in this particular environment.
All right, well, Dr. Fulton, and to back up and kind of expand upon what Patrick was talking about, what about, passion is one thing, but authority is something totally different. How do you balance those two?
It's totally different, but it's also one and the same. You can have authority and be passionate, and also be empathetic and be caring. Um, what I have is I have a safety committee and a team of administrators that we empower. We teach them, we train them up. But at the same time, wherever it is, my job is to be supportive of everyone that's there. So in the tornado, we divided and conquered. We empowered our administrative team to help with that. We empowered certain members of our community to come in and help. So when I look at that, I think taking the lead is by everyone. You play off of everybody's strengths. When I looked at nursing, I looked at my school nurse to come in and take that nursing perspective and that piece. When I looked at my SROs to provide some of that security I needed and to talk about those things. But we brought the whole community together. We were a part, we had our own team, but then we were a part of a community team. And that was important to go because each of them would ask, what is it that you need? What do you need from us? How do we do this? And it was really good to see because from us, it was then, what do you need from us? Because there were pieces that we were then able to provide and
Okay.
empower our students as well.
Yeah,
So they
awesome.
were on the front lines helping as well.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So how do you empower students? That's an interesting point.
So we had the day after the tornado, a group of students reach out to our high school principal who wanted to do something. They didn't want to sit back and do nothing. They reached out, what can we do? They organized a volunteer coalition of over 200 students out of a building of over 1,400, and that just continued to grow. They were in our community helping. They were at our schools helping clean up, do everything that they could do to help because they wanted their community and their schools back together as soon as possible.
That's excellent. And Chief Locker, we hadn't discussed any of this, but I'm going to throw you a curve, but I know you can handle it. But as I think about community and I think about municipalities, et cetera, quite often you see neighborhood watches and other programs similar to that. Is that something students have expressed an interest in trying to be more involved and kind of create a neighborhood watch type environment? To help safeguard some of the schools and some of the situations that you deal with?
Yeah, so sorry, my phone was ringing in the background. We do, Gwinnett County Public Schools, we have some different committees. We have a committee, School Safety Advisory Council. With that, we invite stakeholders, out in the community, parents, teachers, students to sit on this and discuss safety concerns, what's kind of happening with them. And a big one that we're seeing right now is ICE. A lot of our students are talking about ICE. Hey, how is it impacting the community? Because Gwinnett County is, an extremely diverse community. I think over 100 cultures represented, and so forth. And then our superintendent, he also has a student advisory council where he's able to sit down with students, a cross section of different schools and give input and so forth. And then also every year when we develop our school safety plans, we open it up to students and parents to give us feedback also. I think it's important. You have to open up the table and let other people sit at the table and provide input and insight. Because again, it all circles back, Jim, to that, village.
Yeah.
We can't be closed-minded and think just from a law enforcement component. You have to pull in student services, you have to pull in parents, counseling, and everything to make it efficient.
Oh, that's amazing. So, can you think of an example of a good idea that maybe some of these students or a parent has given and that you've been able to kind of move forward with?
Well, I will say in Georgia, House Bill 1023 was introduced, and that and it just passed the House. It still has to go to the Senate, but it's being proposed to mandate weapons detection in all of our schools. Gwinnett County had already started taking the lead on doing weapons detection, but we've had a couple parents that have really been spearheading it, and getting engaged with representatives and senators in the state of Georgia, trying to get this objective push that weapons detection become mandated throughout the state. But of course, we know mandates, there has to be funding behind it also. So,
Yeah.
there's different things, and the good thing, it's again getting the community involved. And I'll give you an example. Everywhere it's an epidemic across the nation, vaping. And a lot of parents, hey, Gwinnett County Public Schools, what are you doing about vaping? And rhetorically, I say, well, we're not selling vapes in our vending machines. You need to take the initiative out in the community. You need to talk to your political, your leaders, your city council, mayor, and so forth, county commissioners, to help get issues like this resolved. So it's that collaboration, working in unison to get a problem addressed.
That's a great example of what we started with is that people think technology, that's something that people want you to do in the community is always revolving around technology or often revolves around technology. And the weapons detection, that's an example of that. Not that that's a bad thing or is ill-conceived or whatever, but this is a great example of also that you're taking back to the community on the vaping. Because there's only so much that schools can do to
Yeah.
respond to things like that, and the
Yeah.
community has to have responsibility. If they can't buy it, hey, if you can't buy the vape, you don't need the vape detector, and that just kind of goes down to the basis of it.
Yeah, you pester your political leaders enough, and they're going to start taking some action.
Yeah, and student leaders are great for helping build the culture, and see something, say something. So that's an excellent way to look at it. And again, it's bringing that out into the forefront, so security and safety just becomes something you do on a day-to-day basis. And if you can take care of the big things, the big issues, the big threats, I'm sorry, the small threats, the small issues, the things you deal with on a day-to-day basis, you're more prepared to take care of that big thing, that tornado that comes through unexpectedly, things like that. That's really, really a great example. So, in the context of school safety, Dr. Fulton, I'll throw this to you. We talk about standard of care. What does that mean to you, and how might that impact you as an administrator on your security planning?
Oh gosh. Standard of care is should form everything of what we do and how we operate, because what we need to do is we need to create a standard of how we are going to implement and deal with issues. One thing that hasn't been brought up here yet is we are dealing with an increased amount of cardiac issues. While that is not necessarily a big safety like we're talking with shooting, it is a medical incident that will come in and it impacts not only the student, but all of the students around. And so when we talk about the safety of, the system of care, we talk about training everyone involved. Right now, we're in the middle of training our coaches right before they go into a season. We've actually had to implement, AEDs on 2 different students in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So, for us, it is a bigger deal, and we know, and we're lucky with our nursing to create that. We also have parents involved in that letter in that on that note for the system of care, one of their children who was the recipient of that AED and those is going in and working with our state legislators. So hence Senate bill for us, Senate Bill 68 in Missouri that was passed last year with a lot of the safety measures and things to implement that are good and best practices. I think the system of care is important, and that's what we want everyone in our district to understand, that we are here to care for everyone. While we can't always address every situation like vaping, how can we partner with those? So recently we were partnering with our outside agencies to do a mental health night. So
All right, yeah, no, that's excellent. And really, a standard of care relates to what you should be doing, what the community norm is for what you should be doing, what that national norm is.
mhm.
That's one of the past guidelines are so important for schools because that does give you a framework for your standard of care, but it requires maintaining a secure and monitored facility, implementing emergency protocols, addressing physical and psychological safety. Rather, you're not an insurer for safety, but you're able to respond to this quickly and appropriately. And to Chief Lockard's point about the mandates, yeah, there's so many times they're not funded, and that is a challenge for school districts. But really, it's about taking the mandates seriously. You can put mandates out that you have AED around your school, but if you don't keep them serviced, you don't keep them maintained, you don't train people on how to use them, they're just something that's stuck up on the wall someplace. It does you absolutely no good. And that's what we mean by setting a culture of safety. So, Patrick, I'm going to jump over to you real quick. What we often say at PASS when we're looking at things and doing our assessments is that once you've seen one school, you've seen one school. All right. And so standard is defined as a required or agreed upon level or quality or attainment. How does that one school rule of thumb fit that? Because everything is different.
Thanks, Jim, for asking me that. I think that really boils down to, for me personally, is why I like PASS so much. I think the answer is in the name. It's Partner Alliance for Safer Schools. And it's not partner alignments for competing schools or your neighbor schools. It's you growing your school to the best of your ability. You're not looking to what's going on down the street on the next county. You're looking at your school and we're evaluating like here are our strong points, here where we're okay, and here's a weak point. But that doesn't mean we fail something. Here's an opportunity for growth. And so that's the thing that I like about PASS, where it gives you the format to see where you're at, but it also gives a blueprint for you, like, hey, this is something we can work on. This is the time frame we can set realistically for us to grow in this particular environment. And it gives you an opportunity to bring in somebody like you, Jim. We've spoken on several occasions. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I have a couple of questions, or hey, this is something I'm trying to go, and just to be able to bounce that off, to go back to, hey, we have this, but we might not have that. Or what was the approach on monitoring doors, or are we doing alarms, or are we doing cameras? What is best practices that you've seen? And you get a wider view instead of just your community, but you actually get a plan for, hey, this is my school environment. This is where we're going. And in 5 years, we should be able to hit this mark.
And that's a really a good way of putting it. I love what you said. It's not about pass and fail, it's about growth. And I think that is a lot of districts around the country are a little hesitant to do an assessment because they're afraid if they find something, they've got to deal with it. Well, yes, you have to deal with it, but there's ways of dealing with it other than just throwing money at the problem. Is about growth. How have you implemented some of that, Chief Lockard? What is your view on assessments and documentation and how that fits in with your program?
Yeah, we do our own internal assessments. We're very fortunate to have a team here that do our own assessments. But if you don't shake the tree, you're not going to get any fruit.
Okay.
You have to be willing to see where the faults are, where your pitfalls are. Complacency kills. If you just get complacent and think, hey, we're doing everything perfect, it's going to come up and bite you. You have to be willing to flush out, deficiencies, where can we be better, and also think and be willing to accept we may not be doing it the best. Hey, Patrick at Greater Atlanta Christian, he may be doing it better down there. Dr. Fold, she may be doing it better, and be willing to accept that feedback and say, you know what, we need to go back and look, how we're doing this, because again, we're here to protect the most valuable asset there is in the world. There's nothing more important than the safety of children. And again, quite frequently, a lot of times institutions, school systems, they'll get in silos, and we have pride, and they're not going to tell me what to do, and so forth. And again, Gwinnett County's done a great job with that, with breaking down the silos. And so much with school safety, you have to have strong leadership from the top. If that school safety message comes from the top, and then your local school, you got strong leaders there. Again, to the point, you can have an AED on the wall, but if you're not training how to use it, it doesn't really do any good. And then you hear it beep, and it's time to replace the battery. Little things like that help keep the culture in the school safe.
Yeah, that's excellent. One of the things I jotted down, you talked about breaking down silos. And when you break down those silos, that's how you get rid of that gotcha mentality, where one department, one group, one organization, whatever, that goes, you did wrong. But when you break down those silos, then it becomes the only goal here is to create a safe environment for our students and our staff holistically create that safe environment.
And I think what's important that, Jim, we speak, a safe environment for the staff, but also the key stakeholders that are coming to the table, be it student services, law enforcement, admin, that it's a safe space for them also, that if they realize they have a deficiency, they don't feel like they're getting beat up on. It's like, hey, we're a team all together to fix this problem. And it's not, the nurses aren't doing that, or counselors aren't doing that, and start the finger pointing. So it's a team that comes together.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, one of the things that we need to deal with on a regular basis, and we hear this term quite often, is first responders. First responders, and quite often we think first responders are in some type of a uniform, be it an EMT, fire, or law enforcement, some type of an official. But yet, the reality is there may be only one SRO, or maybe an SRO down the street, and there's the first responders are inside of your school. How do you deal with that? How do you get them trained? How do you communicate to the staff members that part of their role is being a first responder in emergency? Dr. Fulton, we'll start with you.
Oh gosh, a lot of that takes a lot of talk, a lot of training, a lot of building them up. We also know that we will have people who will not be good first responders. And we look for them to let us know that. So we put those people in place. We will find in an emergency natural leaders rise to the top, but we also have to empower our people. And so when we go into training, for example, something as simple as we have a shooter in the building, but we want to be able to get them out. If we know that it's clear, we see law enforcement coming, is it okay to break the window? Is it okay for them to do those things? To be honest, you have to give those permissions, because what's going to come in is, I'm not going to do that because I don't know how. So you have to give them permission. You have to train them how to do with anything. Like our nurse talked about the other day with our coaching staff, why we train in our AEDs and why we are doing the things we're doing is because it's muscle memory. The more you train, the better off it's going to be. And that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to overcome the stigma of it's all going to be fine and we're not going to do these drills because people are scared. They're going to be twice as scared and not know how to react. So I think it's very important that we empower them, but we also teach them. And as leaders, it's up to us to say, it's okay if you do that. We need you to step up and do those things. Need you to do something. Sitting
Right.
back and doing nothing is probably what they would not forgive themselves if they did that.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. In an emergency, yeah, they've got to be trained. They have to know what they're doing. You build confidence with training.
mhm.
Can I jump in there real quick,
Yeah,
Jim?
sure. Please, Chief.
Yeah, we had an incident last year, and we have the mobile panic alert system. and a teacher put a school into a hard lockdown. One of our high schools, we probably had 60 officers respond from our department and also surrounding departments. And it turned out it was a construction worker walking in a back door, had a bandana up to his eyes, a hat on. He was carrying a sawzall, a piece of power equipment, and it looked like a gun to the teacher. We made sure everything was safe. It took us about an hour, hour and a half to get through the incident. The teacher was so apologetic. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. And we said, no, you did exactly what you're supposed to do. And even we got a little pushback from some community members. And we said, no, that teacher did exactly what she was empowered to do, like Dr. Bolton said, and said, do not regret 1 second what you did.
That is excellent. That is a great example. And that's about supporting people that are making a decision in a crisis, trying to do the right thing, and it's giving them that support. You can't create a culture of safety if you're smacking somebody on the hand every time they try to do something. And even if it's not exactly the way they're supposed to do it, that's an opportunity. Like Patrick said, it's an opportunity to growth. It's not pass or fail for that staff member. It's an opportunity for all of you to grow as you're trying to create that safe environment. How do you balance that need for training people and getting that buy-in with all the other responsibility that staff members have? And we'll start on the public side, and then we'll move over to you, Patrick, on the private side. But how do we do that? We'll start with you, Dr. Fulton. Sorry.
So, yeah, I was thinking, I knew you were coming here because I, it's a hard balance. And a lot of it is talking and communication, and in the situation that Chief talked about, where you do have a construction worker on site in those types of things, we never want anyone to feel bad for doing what they're trained to do. But it's communication. I think it's just training. It's talking to them. I'm sitting here thinking about that. I have construction going on at 3 sites right now, and what does that look like? And I have one in an elementary school that, I think will end up with a lockdown or something at some point because a teacher will do what they've trained to do and take that extra precaution. Honestly, in our communities, I think it's easier to sell that than it is to not taking the action.
All right. And Chief Lockhart, what about you? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a fine balance. And what we'll see also is a lot of times training and alertness, it's almost cyclical. We have an incident like Appalachia High School, a significant, violent attack, or to Dr. Fulton's point, you have a tornado, a natural disaster, and human beings were cyclical. All of a sudden, we want to train, and then we get into downhill slope and we get complacent and so forth. I think again, it comes down to leadership that, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I think it comes back to our most valuable asset in the world is children, and we are mandated to protect them.
Yeah.
And that's how we present it also, that we're mandated to protect these children. And I go on it, if that was my child in the school, would I want them to be trained and so forth? So it's a culture. And I think once it gets to steamrolling throughout your district, and we've seen that in Gwinnett County, our teachers don't hesitate about having to go through training now and so forth. It's just part of their their duties and their yearly checklist that they're required to do and so forth. And please don't get me when I say checklist, like it's just all right, I did that training, but yeah, that they're required to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's excellent. And Patrick, why don't you talked a little bit about passion, and I think that's important for buy-in. How do you deal with it on the private sector?
So on the private sector, you have to come from it from a little bit of a different angle, but it pretty much lands in the same space. And so we don't have as many resources as your larger school districts, but we do have passionate people that care about children, care about the environment. And so we ask them to do multiple things. So yes, you're going to be a teacher like a normal teacher would, but hey, we might need you to do 2 or 3 jobs on our campus. Sometimes that's teaching, coaching, administrator. Sometimes that's teaching, counseling, safety and security. And so we identify those people, the strong points that they have, and then we try to maximize them to the best of their ability. For us, everybody is a first responder. The first person that shows up on scene, we want you to, at the very least, be able to activate our emergency app communication. Even if you don't feel like you can physically help, at least you can push a button. And we've identified a group of, we have a team that will respond, that has the extra training where they can engage, and they do have that comfort level of engaging on a higher level to be able to be hands-on to render aid, and also reaching out to our surrounding police departments to where they can come help us. But it's just that constant growth, constant empowering. Like, I understand that you're a teacher, or I understand that you're a custodian, I understand that you're a nurse, whatever it may be. You have the authority and you have the ability to be able to help someone at any moment, even whether you've gone through training or not. It's just a matter of will you make the choice to help? And
Yeah.
so that's the conversation that we try to have forward. I want you to be able to feel comfortable in stepping forward and helping someone, even if you make the wrong assumption, whether it's an intruder or whatever. If you make the choice, like, hey, I think we need to lock down, this looks weird to me, that's entirely okay. It's not something where you finna get punished. I much rather you initiate our safety protocols, and then instead of, oh, I should have, or
Yeah.
man, if I would have did this, I much rather say, hey, I activated it and I did everything I could. And I think that all puts us all in a better space. Because in the worst case scenario, if you're wrong, the only thing we lost was some time in a classroom. We didn't lose a life. And I'll take
Yeah.
that.
That's well said, man. Well said. I wanted to mention that we have the ability to answer some questions. So if you want to throw any questions out to the panelists or make any comments, I want to thank Mike. He mentioned that he was thanking us for mentioning the fact that the first responders are the individuals in the classroom. So we know that we're getting through and expressing some things. But again, if you have a question, please let us know. We'd be happy to answer it. Let me ask the group coming from is buy-in to culture, all right? Is that a top-down scenario, or is that a bottom-up scenario, or is it kind of meeting in the middle? How do you do that? What's been your experience? We'll start with Chief Locker.
I think buying the culture, I think, and Dr. Fulton mentioned it, you have some natural born strong leaders that are going to step up. But again, I think a lot of people are looking for that leadership to say, this is what we're going to do. This is a mandate that we are going to go forward with in our district. And again, you'll find a lot of people are good at that. Quite frequently, they're looking for someone to make that decision, someone to stand behind. If you think of the military, you have a general and a bunch of troops. They want the general to say, this is what we're going to do. Give us our orders and we're going to go do it.
Right.
And again, you're going to have those outstanding leaders that are going to then motivate those inside the subcategories. A team lead at a high school for the math teachers that, okay, let's do this, let's take the initiative and so forth. Or what we've seen with so many schools that we have, individual schools will take the lead and try to be that shining light, that northern star, and set the example.
Well, I thought that was a great example. It's about creating a vision, and that's what in the military, that's what the generals do. They're creating a vision by outlining what your mission is, and then up underneath them, there's multiple missions going down to the lowest private. And in a school system, it's going down to the staff members inside of their school. They're there to support the mission of the district safety and from an education standpoint.
And
Um,
I'll say this,
yeah,
and making sure, going back to what, Patrick and, Monica had said, giving those individuals the power to accomplish the mission. That's important, because
yes.
if you don't give them the power, then, here we're all just sitting there saying, why haven't we done this? Well, you're not giving us the power to do it and the ability to make errors and recuperate from it.
Right. And as we talk about buy-in and the culture of safety and passion, to go back to again what Patrick had mentioned, Dr. Fulton, I want to ask you, one of the things I often think of when I talk about or think about volunteering for different things, which I've done over the years, sometimes it comes down to if not you, who? If not now, when? How does that factor into you creating that culture of safety you have in your district?
Oh gosh. So I think I'll answer this with an example. A couple of years ago, actually about a year and a half ago, we had someone break into one of our schools after hours. In the building that night was a counselor and was a group hosting a robotics club. With the culture of safety, I had some staff members there. One of them immediately went to the kids to secure them, and another one actually went because they weren't sure who was in the building. It was after hours. Went out to see to make sure they had no other kids there. We had done enough training that we empowered those people to take those action steps and come in and do what they needed to do. And at that time, it was it was amazing. I actually had one of our SROs tell me, well, he shouldn't have done that. No, he did exactly what we've trained him to do. And I think in creating that culture of safety, again, we don't want to beat them down for doing what they did. But honestly, if he hadn't done what he did, that intruder would have gotten anywhere in that building. We had other custodians out there. And he fought with him for several minutes before the police showed up. And so, and he kept him at bay. It was because of his actions we had safe, our kids were safe, and the other staff members and the parents that were there. So when I look back at that night and we debriefed, did we achieve our mission in training people? And the answer would be yes. So it's very important that we keep to our standards and we keep doing what we're doing because we're doing the right things for kids. And in that night, whenever I showed up, our kids were safe. One staff member was a little beat up, but everybody else was safe. And that was the mission and the goal.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, Patrick, when we create, and I've been to your school, I've seen what you're doing, you've got a strong culture of safety. Has that impacted technology decisions? Have you felt like that you didn't need to invest maybe in something because you have other processes, people's roles and processes in place because of your culture that helped you enhance your security without a large outlay of funding?
So I look at that as though I don't look at it as though it's one or the other. I look at it in the space of, in this particular problem or situation, this is how I can best protect the community. And sometimes it's technology, and sometimes it's a procedure, or sometimes it's a combination of both. And
Okay.
for us growing our culture, I always look at though, I know we're saying buy in the culture. I always engage our culture. And so I'm always looking at the environment like, hey, this is what we have going on. This is what we're doing. But I'm constantly evaluating it and going over it because the answer might be this was good for us 2 years ago. This is not serving us well today. And
Yeah.
so I need to change it. I'm never in the space of, oh, just for example, we have this camera over here covering this, that might not be the best option for us anymore. Maybe we need to get some electronic doors. Maybe we need to put somebody in this particular position. It's that constant evaluation, all because we've done something for a period of time for 20 years or 5 years, whatever it may be. That does not mean it's correct today. And so I walk into each day. Each day is new. Each day is a new evaluation. Each day I'm looking for opportunities for us to get better, to make sure we're ensuring that we can provide the safest environment possible and also a family-oriented environment. And so it's a constant evaluation. It's a constant engagement of culture.
All right. Yeah, no, I can think of that's excellent, man. I can think of one good example is that, often when I work with districts and I work with a number of them, people will request cameras in a location because they had a couple of incidents. But sometimes when you talk to the leadership of that district, what they're trying to get through to the staff is that you should be in the hallway monitoring these students, cameras are used predominantly for discipline, and there is a huge benefit for that, but you don't really necessarily enhance your safety just by putting up an extra camera in a hallway to get a slightly better view. How do you balance those requests with communicating to staff members that part of their job is being in the hallway helping to keep the students safe, sometimes from each other? Chief, I'll let you start with that.
Yeah, it is great that, the human factor is the most important factor. I mean, we can have all the technology we want, but again, it comes down to ground level. It comes down to teachers talking to students, other students being willing to come forward if they've heard, see something, say something. Because again, we could spend $10 million on technology at a school. Guess what? It still can be defeated.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to the human factor, getting buy-in from them and letting them know that they're part of the team. And to Patrick's point, also, from us higher level, reevaluating, and you got to put your pride aside. If you implement something and it completely fails, being willing to pivot, being willing to say, you know what? I totally messed that up, made the wrong call. Let's pivot and let's start doing it this way. Even though that recommendation it might come from a student, that, hey, are we trying this? Why don't we do this? And be like, well, that's a pretty good idea. Let's go ahead and implement it. You got to get rid of pride.
Got you. That's really good. Very well said. All right, so I've got a couple of questions as we're wrapping up here over the next, 5 minutes or so. I'll express this. Actually, I'll let everybody answer that. We'll start with Dr. Fulton. How do policies and procedures at the district and the school level enable this culture? How do you define success?
Um, I think we define success every day at what goes on. Um, if we put in the climate and culture, and I can't repeat it, and I agree with Chief enough and can't express enough that it's about our people. Technology's tools. It's a
Mm,
tool to help us, but it's about our people. And if we have good people in place and we work with our students and we build those relationships and we build them within not only in our school, within our community, schools will be a safer place.
yeah.
And I think that's really what that comes down to. So we have policies that guide what we do, and we have laws that guide what we do. We have to do them, but it all comes down to the people that we work with.
That's awesome. Patrick, how do you define success?
I think Monica knocked that one out of the park. It's not really much that I can add to it. I'm 100% in agreement with her on that one.
Yeah. So, Chief, it's not about policies and procedures, is it? It's about
Yeah,
what?
I mean, policy is just a piece of paper. That's
Yeah.
all it is. It's a piece of paper that someone put some words on and said, let's do it this way. Again, it comes down to the people, but yet having a good policy that's not unrealistic or unpractical, that it can be followed. Yeah, we throw in some ridiculous mandate. Well, you're gonna do AED training, every week. Okay, that's not practical.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And then someone else also asked if there was a guide from PASS on the methods to implement this culture. And I want to remind everyone that we are going to submit a white paper on this. And I think that based on some of the questions that we received and the conversations, I think this is really important. It is as important, in my opinion, and in some ways more important than the technology you're implementing. If you don't have a good culture first where you're taking things seriously and really trying to implement, that technology is just a piece of hardware that's sitting out there. And if it's not being used, if not being utilized, it can be a waste. And then people don't know how to, in an emergency, they don't know how to use it, don't know what to do, et cetera. So, and based on these conversations, the last question I'll throw out for everyone is this, is that if lessons learned to this group as you've looked at it and building your culture and building that team, that internal team, is there anyone that you might think about adding to that group? Maybe a department related to breaking down silos or having that holistic, it takes a village mentality. Can you think of anybody you might think about adding to your teams to help you build that culture? Chief, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we need to truly develop our community teams even better. Especially, I know Gwinnett County, we have so much diversity in our county. And with different ethnicities, different races, we have different perspectives and so forth. When I, think about our Hispanic community, and then I look at our Korean community, you're getting different perspectives from that. I think of our Somali community, you get different perspectives. Because again, a culture that they grew up in, I may not have any idea what they're dealing with. We get individuals that come from cultures where they do not trust law enforcement, even more so than here, where there's corruption and bribes and taking money and so forth. So we have to think about that. I mean, because naturally here in America, we think, oh, we got a police officer in the school, trust the police officer. That may not be true and so forth. So again, in being willing to accept that feedback. If someone says, we don't trust this or we don't trust the educational system, that we don't take offense to it. That we're like, okay, that's how you feel. And I can't fault you for that. I can't take offense to it, but how do we get to a meeting point, to an agreement spot?
Yeah, in order to create a culture we're wanting, sometimes we have to accept cultures that we're unfamiliar with
Yeah.
and understand what their concerns are and how they view things. That's
Yeah.
well put. I wish we could expand that to our entire country in a lot of realms. So, as we look at this, Dr. Fulton, is there anyone that you might think about adding to your group?
I think Chief hit the nail on the head. We may be in rural Missouri, but we are a very diverse population. And so with that, it's often hard to get those people in, but to expand it to include those different cultures, I have a hard time. Nobody really wants to sit on the safety committee for some reason. They think
Mhm.
it's just, our SROs just take care of it and it's fine, but it's more than that. But bringing in more people, getting the community engaged. I have a hard time. I'll have a parent say, "Yeah, I'll serve on the committee," but they just don't show up. So how do you continue to engage our community and our parents and our students to be an
Yeah.
active participant?
Yeah, like Chief said, is that we're America in the U.S. We're a hot button item. That's how we focus on it. And when it's hot, everybody wants to participate. But it's where the rubber meets the road is where you can implement this. Patrick, can you sum it up in a real quick minute? We'll be ending here in a few, but if you can just give us a little insight of who you might add to this.
Who I might add to is anybody that wants to have a relationship with us in the school. If you have a level of interest and you care, I'm open to, or we are open to hear your thoughts, evaluate them. Some of them might have good merit and some not, but I'm interested in anybody who wants to engage on that level. I'm willing to hear you. I'm willing to listen, and I'm willing to evaluate anyone because we deal with people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Where we are in Gwinnett County, but we literally have people on our campus from all over the world.
Oh,
And the thought process and the approaches are completely different. And it doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong, but it is an opportunity from us to grow together, to make sure we have the safest environment possible. So the most important thing is the relationship piece for me.
that is it. Mike mentioned in the chat that it is really about the leadership is about relationship. It's not about barking orders. It's not about creating mandates. It's not about writing a policy on a piece of paper. It's about building the relationship and getting people to participate in a challenge that you're responsible for, but all of us are responsible for our kids. Guys, I just want to thank you again for participating. You've done a great job here. Feel like it was very helpful. I learned some things. Hopefully, our audience did as well. I want to remind our audience that we have ISC West and the town hall meeting is at ISC West on the Thursday, the 24th. 5th. I want to remind everybody about that. Please come and join us at ISC West for our town hall. Thank you again for everyone and for participating and for joining the seminar or webinar. Well, take care and guys, y'all stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Ready?